of Chinese tariffs on Saskatchewan's agriculture industry. We've seen in the last year not only our provincial election, but other provincial elections. We saw a new prime minister, we saw a federal election, and now we have a new federal cabinet. And through it all, I would say that our beautiful province of Saskatchewan has remained very strong and steady throughout all of this time of quite uncertainty, or quite uncertain times. And I think it's incumbent on us at this point in time just to take a moment to take stock of where we are as a province, where we are as a province of Saskatchewan. And the fact is that our economy in Saskatchewan is leading the nation today. While other provinces are losing jobs, our province of Saskatchewan has the strongest rate of job growth in Canada. While unemployment is up in many areas of Canada, it's down here. And we can collectively as Saskatchewan people be very proud of that. We have the lowest unemployment rate in Canada. Saskatchewan remains an island of stability in a sea of what is quite economic turmoil in Canada and around the world. Our very strong and steady economy means that we can deliver for Saskatchewan people in the way of the investments that you saw in this most recent budget. And that's precisely what our budget was focused on this spring session, was delivering on behalf of the people that we represent. Delivering on each and every of our election promises that we had made in the most recent provincial election, designed to make life more affordable for Saskatchewan people. Delivering on our commitments to make communities safer. Delivering on a change that Saskatchewan people voted for in areas like health and education. And also delivering a balanced budget, the only balanced budget in the nation of Canada. We also, as we all know, had a federal election this spring. And I would say as we find our way into the next number of conversations, the very day after the election, I said it was a chance for the new Prime Minister to reset the federal government's relationship with our province of Saskatchewan. And if you just back up over the course of the last number of weeks, there are many opinions across Saskatchewan and across Canada. The conversations that myself as a subnational leader and now the federal government are having with President Trump and his administration, there's many that said we shouldn't even discuss in any way or have conversations with the president. The fact is they're our largest trading partner, and we are a government representing people and industries in Saskatchewan, and so we must talk to the leader of the nation or his administration of that significance of a trading partner. There are some today that say we shouldn't deal with the Liberal government. We shouldn't deal with a new Prime Minister, Carney. Well, the fact of the matter is he is the Prime Minister of our nation, and we must deal with the federal government. And I think, in fairness, you've seen a change in tone from this government in how we want to move forward with this new Prime Minister, Prime Minister Carney. And we want to reset that relationship that we have with the federal government as we move forward. I would say that relationship had become increasingly strained under his predecessor, under former Prime Minister Trudeau. So a couple of weeks ago, I spoke with Prime Minister Carney about the things that the federal government would have to look at in order to really improve the relationship with Saskatchewan and allow Saskatchewan to continue to thrive and maybe even grow at a faster rate than we have the last while. So yesterday I wrote to the Prime Minister in the follow-up to those conversations that we had, and I sent him what essentially is our Strong Saskatchewan and Strong Canada plan. There are 10 key policy changes, shifts in policy that the federal government, I would say, can take and should take, and I would say even needs to take and make very quickly. What this would signal is a new and a much more positive relationship, arguably not just with Saskatchewan, but with many provinces across Canada. A stronger Saskatchewan certainly means a stronger nation of Canada. We have always believed that, and we continue to believe that today. And any of these changes that would be made, and all of these changes made collectively, would be very positive for our province, and thereby would be very positive for the nation of Canada. You've all seen the letter, and you've heard me talk about these policy changes literally for years now, but really focus them in over the course of the last number of weeks. We need to work alongside and support our federal government in every conversation that we can to have the tariffs that are put on by the Chinese government removed. We need to make significant changes when it comes to the Criminal Code of Canada, whether that be going further in the way of bail reform or going further in ensuring that there are significant consequences for people that are bringing poisonous drugs into our nation, into our province, and into our communities. We need to provide the responsibility and the metrics for any industrial carbon tax to the provinces. We are a very diverse nation, and one size fits all certainly is not going to work in that policy. We've said that since day one, and that decision-making power should be allocated to where it rightfully should be, which is under the provincial decision-making purview. We need to repeal a number of policies like the clean electricity regulations and the oil and gas cap. We need to do our level best, and you're hearing strong indications from the federal government about opportunities for corridors and expanding pipeline egress capacity. Trade-related infrastructure goes with that through these corridors across the country, and ensure that we do have the seamless operation of not only access to those corridors, but seamless operation of all of the facets that allow us to export, in our case, to over 160 countries around the world. That includes port operations, rail operations, and working alongside our federal government to ensure that we are a reliable supplier and trading partner with, as I say, 160 countries from Saskatchewan's perspective, but many more from Canada's perspective. These changes will not only make Saskatchewan's economy stronger, they will make Canada's economy stronger, and they will make our nation stronger. And it'll help achieve the Prime Minister's goal of making Canada the world's leading energy superpower. And we truly want to be a part of that, and we want to work alongside the federal government in achieving that. It's a great objective. We support it wholeheartedly, but so far, and rightfully so, as we've found our way through an election, these are words and words only. So now that the election is over and we see a cabinet that has been sworn in, it's time for us, again, to work alongside one another to turn these words into action. Policies matter. And you're seeing the function of policies made in this province over the last decade and a half with respect to the economic statistics that I had mentioned. But I would say that these policies that we have laid out for our federal government to change their direction on, to alter their direction on, they matter as well to Saskatchewan, and indirectly through a stronger province of Saskatchewan matter to Canada. So I think I'll stop there, and I'll take any questions that you might have on what I call the Strong Saskatchewan, Strong Canada plan.
Premier, I noticed that you didn't directly mention Western separatism, although some issues that you talked about probably touch on. Can you clarify for the Saskatchewan public today how serious a threat you take this, or whether you consider it a threat at all? Because I think that's sort of one of the things that there seems to be some confusion about in terms of your position, which obviously you've made it clear you're supportive of Canada, or Saskatchewan within a strong Canada, but how serious is the threat in your mind?
Yeah, I disagree. Sorry, Marie, I would disagree with you. I don't think it is unclear with respect to our position. I believe there are some that are attempting to make it unclear in the opposition ranks and such, and we hear that discussion each and every day in this place. I truly believe there is an opportunity for Saskatchewan to grow and prosper within a united Canada. It's the very fabric of the party that I lead, and I think it's very much at the core of what, if not the majority, virtually all of Saskatchewan people believe as well. However, we've had 10 challenging years. We've had 10 challenging years with the relationship with our federal government. And so herein lies the opportunity. New Prime Minister, largely a new cabinet. The opportunity for us to, and I think you've seen a marked different tone coming from myself and our government the last number of weeks since the federal election, is that we truly do want to move forward in, yes, altering some of the policies that come from the federal government, but we will work on them with those policies as well to make them workable, so that we have that attractive investment environment and can continue to grow and prosper in Saskatchewan within the nation of Canada. I don't know how much more clear I can be on that, on our position with respect to what the future lies for Saskatchewan. Now I'll comment on alienation, separation, and such. There are many that feel alienated, and I think when you get to the core of, whether it be separation or alienation talk, the lines will blur in that space, even for the folks that are, actively discussing it. I would say that herein lies the opportunity for the federal government and the provincial government, and maybe largely why you see me moving forward in the way that we are, to provide another option. I've said many times I don't believe in the straw man argument that there's only two options, separation or the status quo. I believe there is another option. I truly believe that the new Prime Minister, and I'm hopeful that he will act on it, but I believe that he he feels there's another option as well, to alter some of the policies, to work alongside the provinces, maybe consult with them before new policies are put in place on what the impacts will be for our integrated economy in Saskatchewan, how that will impact the Canadian economy. And so, there's talk of that out in our province. There's talk of it obviously in neighboring provinces. I'm the Premier of Saskatchewan, and I certainly am going to do my level best to do what we can to work with the federal government on a different path than the two that have been presented by the opposition and been presented by others. And it's my hope, and at this point in time, I would say that much of the ball is in the federal government's court. We've laid out the opportunities that are there, and with a slight alteration of policy, and we'll work with them on what that is, and have already made suggestions and some fairly specific suggestions in certain areas. I'm hopeful that we will find that path.
It was a yes or no question today, though. Is it a threat or is it not a threat? What would your answer be? Is Saskatchewan Western separation a threat to us today?
Well, not at all. There's no referendum in front of any province. There's nothing of the sort. So it would not be a threat today. However, the disenfranchisement that many people in this province and others are feeling, I wouldn't say that I haven't felt it at times with respect to some of the unconsulted policies that have come forward over the last decade or so. It's real. It's real. And there's a different path. And we should be working, alongside one another as Canadians to support, the ways that we create wealth, which are very, very different in areas of the nation. And I'm hopeful that the new Prime Minister has a full understanding of that, because the last Prime Minister and the administration were not helpful in bringing Canadians together.
Almost an ultimatum of sorts, because you're saying you must do these things if you want to reset the relationship with Saskatchewan, which could also be read as, if you don't do these things, Saskatchewan won't be on your side. I view it as an opportunity. That's why there's not a date on this, do these things by this date or this will happen. This is an opportunity. And I would say that the conversations that we've had thus far, not only with the Prime Minister, but with some of those ministers, and there'll be some, as we see, there'll be some varying opinions of those ministers, but ultimately the policy is going to be driven by the Prime Minister. I'd say they've been quite positive, refreshingly positive on each of these policies. And so, we have to give this an opportunity to succeed. We have to ensure that we are providing every opportunity for Saskatchewan to succeed. That's my job as Premier and leader of our party, and that's the effort that I'm going to make. As I said earlier, there will be oft judgment on who you're talking to, why you're talking to them, whether you even should be talking to them. And that goes back to some of the engagement that we had with many within the President Trump's administration. There's many said you shouldn't be talking to them at all. You should be talking to them more. The same goes after quite a divisive federal election, where we essentially have boiled it down to a two-party nation as far as this election goes. The fact is that we have to deal with the Prime Minister, and we should be trying to advance what Saskatchewan's goals and interests are. And what we want in Saskatchewan is respect for the provincial jurisdiction that we have. What we want in Saskatchewan is an attractive investment environment so that we can create those jobs and create the opportunity that we see the results of in the metrics that I had mentioned here this morning. If we can achieve that with whomever is the federal government, I think we're in a pretty good place in this province. To when, is there a point at which you would feel if these things aren't done, it's almost a failure, a refusal to do them?
I would say the timeline that I have in mind at this point in time is as soon as possible, and there's no reason why they can't be acted on sooner rather than later. And we, listen, some of them require some work, and we're willing to do and provide some of that work in those details from Saskatchewan's perspective and the industries that work here. So, some won't happen overnight. Some require a commitment and some work over time. For example, some of the rewrites that need to happen, court-ordered rewrites, some of them, but also need to happen in the way of the Impact Assessment Act. I think the provinces who have a capacity to work on legislation and such have an opportunity to really assist the federal government moving forward in a space like that, and that's part of the offer that we have, and that's part of the work that we're doing. So I don't have a date or a deadline, and I don't have an or else. However, I would say this:
And this, we're at a sensitive time in this nation. There's no getting around that or sugarcoating. We're at a very sensitive time in this nation. We have we just came through an election where the unsuccessful party, the Conservative Party, had more votes than they ever had in the 10 years that they actually formed government. We are, whether it continues or not, we'll see, but we are in a two-party system today as far as the results of this election come. And so that it's a sensitive time in our nation. And I think it's incumbent on all politicians at every level to at least give their level best to attempt to work together. We may not agree on everything, but attempt to work together. If we're not able to do that, we'll have to make decisions as we find our way through that conversation. And I would just use the analogy of not long ago in a post-electoral environment provincially here in Saskatchewan. We listened. Some would say maybe we haven't made all of the right decisions post-election in Saskatchewan, but we very much ran on a platform of focused on affordability and ensuring Saskatchewan continues to be the most affordable province in the nation of Canada. What we heard throughout that campaign is we need to expand our focus, to access to healthcare providers, access to a timely surgery. We need to expand our focus to ensure that we're making investments in educational outcomes and keeping our community safe. And you saw that in the speech from the throne, and you saw the funding being delivered in this most recent budget. I would say the same opportunity is available for the federal government in a different way to listen to Canadians and, in our case, those from Saskatchewan, and make the necessary policy alterations, and we want to work alongside them to do that.
Premier, are you going to let this tax bill today goes to the 4.3 vote?
No, and I don't understand where the guidance has come to double what is already a fairly onerous criteria in the way of a plebiscite or a referendum moving forward. So I don't know who has provided her guidance that needs to be doubled. It certainly wasn't, I don't think, anyone in government. I don't believe it was the electoral officer that had provided that guidance. It is, 15% is a very onerous number to begin with. And it's a piece of legislation that has been in place, hasn't been altered for close to 30, 40 years now. So, no. We're not looking to take Saskatchewan people's voice away by making the criteria for, we're talking about this topic today, but it could be any topic in 2 years or 3 years. And people need to have a voice in between elections, or the opportunity to have a voice in between elections. And so there's, what I would say with respect to the referendum legislation that we have, there were some recommendations made by the Chief Electoral Officer a number of years ago now. And not in response to this, but maybe due to some of the discussion around the recommendations he had made and the discussions around referendum and plebiscites today, we might have a look at some of the recommendations that the Chief Electoral Officer made a few years ago, and maybe move on those, not in an urgent fashion, but move on those in due course moving forward. So a fair question is, who provided the advice to double that number to roughly about 250,000 people signing a petition before you could even have a plebiscite in this province? To my knowledge, I have not found anyone that has said that would be an advisable move. And what it essentially results in is taking away voters' voice in between elections. There might be even an argument made that the 125,000 as it sits right now, or the 15%, might be too onerous as well, and you see that discussion playing out in Alberta. We have no plans or haven't had discussions with respect to that, so we have no interest in silencing Saskatchewan voters' voice between elections. I'm unsure who advised the NDP that was a good idea.
You've asked for a few things from Ottawa. You've also spoken about the need for both parties here, Ottawa, and to reset the relationship. I'm curious about what actions you're taking and what you are doing tangibly to help reset that relationship.
Well, I would say a change in tone is significant, and I think most would agree, and some might not agree with the change in tone in this province due to some of the, some of their their feelings because of policies over the course of the last decade or so. The fact of the matter is much of the tone that we have had as a provincial government and myself over the last number of years is due to, it's responsive in nature. To an unconsulted introduced carbon tax going back to, I think it was 2017 or 18. I was environment minister at the time. No one was consulted on that policy. It was introduced in the House of Commons, and that really, I think, precipitated a layering and a flurry of policies that came after that. The Impact Assessment Act, the oil emissions cap, the clean electricity regulations, all of these policies layered on top of one another to really restrict the investment environment we have. And when you look at these policies here, outside of the one around the criminal code, they are largely asks to alter the policy direction to make for a more attractive investment environment in Saskatchewan and across Canada. Not just for us, but across Canada. So I think the first thing for us to change is the tone of approach that we have with the federal government. I think you've seen that happen, and that is real. We are going to make every effort to work alongside the federal government to achieve better policy development from our perspective in each of these spaces. We believe it'll benefit not only Saskatchewan people, but all Canadians. As we get into each of these, there will be gives and takes, and there will be conversations that need to happen. And we'll find our way through those as we discuss each of these topics. And so we understand that. I don't have a list of Saskatchewan will do this, and that's our ultimatum. What I will say is we want to discuss each of these topics and many more, but this is a starting point. For us and the federal government to reset the relationship that we have moving forward. And I say, if we wanted to add an 11th point to this, it would be to work together and consult with one another with policies as we move forward. But there's other initiatives that are not on this list that are very much going to be part of our discussions over the next number of months. The federal gun ban and the retaking of the guns, for example. It's not on this list. It's a priority for Saskatchewan. It's a policy difference between us and the federal government, and those conversations will be happening as well. So this is a start for that relationship. There's going to be gives and takes in each of these areas, as there will be in other areas. And so, but I think the most significant change that you've seen from myself in the province of Saskatchewan is a willingness to work alongside the federal government in making Saskatchewan a better investment environment, making thereby contributing even more to the nation of Canada. And that's a significant change.
It is, but I suppose it's just tone and words at this point. You even said yourself that words are words and we need action. So what actions are you going to take? What gives and takes are you anticipating and what are you going to do?
And we'll get into those as we find our way through each of these.
The meeting coming up June 2nd in Saskatoon. What do you expect will be the main focus of that meeting and your priorities coming out of that?
I think I won't speak obviously for the Prime Minister or other premiers, but I think a significant focus of that meeting is how do we move forward with significant projects? In an environment where you have Bill C-69, in an environment where you have the oil emissions cap, in an environment where you have the clean electricity regulations, how are we going to find our way through those policy initiatives that we may change collaboratively over time? How do we get big projects approved and get them approved quickly? Whatever that might be. How do we actually take significant steps in the short term to ensure that we're working together to achieve what the Prime Minister's words were and goal and aspiration is to make Canada an energy superpower. Saskatchewan certainly can be part of that, not just in the oil and gas sector, but in the uranium mining sector, now getting in to some degrees, directly and indirectly, into the nuclear space as well. Lithium, helium, all of those things come from Saskatchewan, and likely more of them are going to come from Saskatchewan in the years ahead. In order for that to happen, we have to have that solid regulatory environment, and I think that'll be the focus of that discussion, is how do we ensure that there's a regulatory environment for new uranium mines to be approved and built, for new helium investments to land here in Saskatchewan, lithium investments to land here in Saskatchewan, and to, in fairness, expand the certainty of the investment environment in the oil and gas industry. And we do have opportunities to grow our oil production in this province, where in numerous oil fields that we have, which operate a little bit differently. And so I think that's going to be the focus of the discussion. How do we move forward in the short term, given that these regulations and pieces of legislation are in place, and getting those projects to yes? And secondarily, then, how do we set up a a stronger, more robust regulatory environment in Canada where projects can actually, investments in projects can actually happen because they have the certainty that they will come from exploration through development into actual production. That's what we've always tried to provide in Saskatchewan, and I think, in fairness, Saskatchewan may be helpful in that discussion, in discussion around some of these policy initiatives as well. And I think another space where we've had discussions with the federal government and other provinces as well, and we might be helpful, is in our international outreach from a provincial or subnational level, in advocating in markets of interest and having contacts in those very markets when conversations get difficult, whether that be tariff-related conversations or otherwise.
How important is the new pipeline? Stephen Gallo yesterday was asked about it. He said there will never be another pipeline in Canada and that there isn't support for it within the Liberal government. He also said oil is going to peak in 2028. What is your response to that?
I mean, he's Minister of Culture, and he's Minister of Culture and Canadian Identity. His comments don't really hold a lot of weight when it comes to, expanding the industry in Saskatchewan, Western Canada, or even in Canada for that matter. I would, in the spirit of helping the Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture, I would also provide an offer for him. I'm sure he's very grounded in culture, in where he lives and where he was raised in the province of Quebec. I would hope that he, in his portfolio, is very focused on, identifying, supporting, and understanding the entirety of Canadian culture, not just the culture in Quebec. And I would encourage that minister to get out and experience Canadian culture in its entirety. And here's an offer. I think later this month, May the 24th, I'm hoping, I'm not 100% certain, but I'm hoping I'd be able to attend an ATV rally in a community not far from where I live, Takakoop Cree Nation. I have a side-by-side, I have room for the Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture, and I'd be happy to take him along where he could experience some true Indigenous Canadian culture in a region of the nation where I live, not too far from my home. And so, there would be my offer, is if you truly are going to support the entirety of Canadian culture, not just as you see it, and I hope he's not there to try to shape Canadian culture, but to support the entirety of Canadian culture. There's my offer to the new Minister of Canadian Culture, is to come out and experience some Indigenous Canadian culture in our part of the world. I would point very quickly to the comments that another minister made that I thought were spot on, and it was, our Minister of State for Rural Development was Buckley Belanger, who said and reiterated what the Prime Minister has said, is that Canada is going to become an energy superpower, and discussion around pipelines are going to be part of the discussion, as are altering some of the legislation that I have mentioned here today. And so the direction is going to come from the Prime Minister. He's different than the last. And we, certainly, I think, are going to give him every chance to succeed in changing some of these policies for the betterment, not just of this province, but Canadians.
Couple more questions?
On the subject of Buckley Belanger, he's a Secretary of State, not a cabinet member. It seems as though Michael Cram yesterday was saying that this has a degree of tokenism to it, and that he's not going to be in a position to strongly advocate for Saskatchewan. I'm curious if you think that Saskatchewan not having a cabinet minister is a snub, and how do you think that Buckley Belanger, as a Secretary of State, will be able to advocate for this?
No, I'm happy that he's appointed into whatever level of cabinet appointment that he has. I mean, he's not a new politician, but he's certainly new at this level of politics, and so I'm happy that he'll be part of whatever conversations he is, and he'll be, I think, in fairness, despite political differences in this assembly, Buckley's always been I think probably Minister Belanger now, he's always been an approachable individual, and we look forward to working with him in his new capacity. We have disagreements don't mean that where you can align on policies and align on the betterment of the people that we collectively represent, doesn't mean you don't work together from time to time. That's our offer moving forward, and we're quite hopeful that the federal government's going to see it that way as well, and I'm hopeful they will.
We're getting a briefing this morning, I guess, in the forest fire situation up north, which I guess is closer to Shelburne.
Yeah.
What's sort of your message to northerners and what you're doing with air tankers and things like that?
Yeah, I really wish we were getting the rain that we're seeing in Regina in the north. I don't think we are. It's tinder dry in the north. I was home last weekend, and it's terrible dry. So we have called through some of the packs that we've been part of for literally decades. We've called in some additional resources from other areas of the country, and we're very appreciative of that. We see some equal challenges in the province of Manitoba as well, with, and you know, our hearts go out to a family there that has the two individuals have passed, and just I think a reminder of how significant and dangerous these fires can be. In the north, we haven't had much in the way of rainfall this spring. It is tinder dry. Virtually all the fires are started by us people, not intentionally, whether it be quads or whatever that might be. And so I just ask people to be very, very careful in everything they're doing. And there's fire bans across the entirety of the north in many communities. That came on in my community a number of years ago. How we're preparing, and this was leads us back to a budget or two ago, was the commitment and the purchase of 4 additional aircraft in the province. We're taking delivery of the first of those 4 very shortly, and not a minute too soon, or a minute too late, I guess you'd say, as it'll be immediately going to work in the situation that we have. But ultimately what we need is we need a little bit of a weather change in the north. We need some rain. We need it quickly. And in the meantime, I would ask everyone in the north who, you know, forest fires are not new to us, but it's a very volatile environment, very tinder dry, is to be just very, very careful in everything you're doing.
Perfect, thanks, everybody.